Imagine not being able to read the paper because your hands were shaking. Imagine not being able to read newsprint as your world faded to black. The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. Monthly Report. With your host, Lee Martin, and co-host, Florence Myers-McSwine.
We want to welcome everyone back to the National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana Monthly Report. Florence, how are you doing today?
I'm well.
I am excited about our show today because we have a very special guest. Once again, I tell you, we've been blessed to have good guests. I'm a poet and didn't know it, huh? So our guest today, with us today, is Officer Matthew Stewart.
Yes.
And how are you doing today, Mr. Stewart?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Well, I had the pleasure of reading the National Federation of the Blind newspapers that we carry. Being a totally blind citizen, I have access, and you can have access as well, to reading newspapers and magazines. I read about Officer Matthew Stewart.
Yes.
And that's with a D.
Yes.
And I read about him in the Indianapolis Recorder. So during this particular month of Black History Month, it is a pleasure to have you here today to talk about what you do as an officer and your history as an officer. And I understand that we'll have a follow-up show with you as well about some other things that you do in the community.
Yes.
And we're both interested in that. But those of you that watch our show know that we offer newspapers, magazines, TV guide listings, job listings, just by using your telephones. And just by listening and using your digital talking player from the National Library of Congress that's given out free to blind citizens. Florence, you want to talk a little bit about the magazines that we offer with the Newsline?
I certainly can.
NFB Newsline.
I certainly can. As far as magazines, there's a plethora of magazines. I've got my own preference, but I'm just going to start with the AARP since I am a senior. I'm just talking about me. Since I am a senior, there's AARP magazines. There's magazines for diabetics, basically assisting them with resources, foods, and things like that. There's information about medications. There's also magazines. Well, one of my favorites, Guidepost magazines, the Reader's Digest. Oh, and we just added a new magazine just in time for Black History Month. We have Ebony magazine.
And that's a great magazine, too. I was reading some of the articles. And we'll be right back here to tell you more about the National Federation of the Blind monthly report and Newsline, and to chat a little bit with Officer Stewart. So stay tuned. You don't want to miss this segment. Thank you.
Thousands of Indiana residents feel isolated from the world due to vision problems. Thanks to the National Federation of the Blind, visually impaired Hoosiers can hear newspapers, circulars, and magazines from across the globe.
I'm a Vietnam veteran. I'm blind. I read Stars and Stripes on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
I use NFB Newsline when reading Hammond Northwest Times.
Using NFB Newsline, I read the Christian Science magazine.
Dad, you read Jerusalem Post, too.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Live the life
It's free.
I want to welcome you back to the National Federation of the Blind Monthly Indiana Report. So, Florence, we were talking before we went to break about the National Federation of the Blind Newsline. You were talking more about magazines. You'll share a little bit more about the magazines?
Sure. As far as magazines, I basically was, telling about the Ebony, which is the new one. But also, I wanted to let our listeners know about the other ways we access NFB Newsline. For instance, I have an iPhone, and I use an app. And with downloading the app, I'm able to access my publications. I'm able to do a search, a phrase search, and basically read about anything I choose to read about, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so with the app, I use that. You can use your Android phones. You can also use a computer to access the audio service. So it's basically, it's something for everyone. For instance, seniors like using their landline phones. People like me enjoy using the app. So there's just different ways to access that free service.
And once again, that free service is offered to citizens that are blind, visually impaired, those that have certain forms of dyslexia and shaking hand syndromes, and those that have challenges reading print. So it's a free service, and you can access that also through one of our partners at the Talking Book and Braille Library. There are sponsors. You can go there, as well as look at the commercials that we have and follow the information that's there on how to contact us to get this valuable free service. Because for the first time in the history, we're able to access over 460 newspapers, 15 international newspapers. You can just pick up your phone. One of our subscribers called it, what did he call it?
A global publication.
A global publication that he has right there at his fingertips. You can read the Times, you can read the journals, and one of the good things about the publication, it updates itself. It populates all throughout the day. So if there's new articles coming on, new situations around the country, around the world, you can pick up and read about it. And also our weather alerts. Our weather alerts are very important and valuable to us as blind citizens.
And there's also breaking news.
Breaking news.
Yes.
With the weather alert, you often hear the beep on the screen that says beep beep, and a crawler with information, and we can't decipher that. So we call NFB Newsline, and it deciphers it by zip code as to what's going on with weather. So I recommend that highly. And so just check it out. And those that are looking for jobs, you can find jobs all over the country just by entering the zip code that you want to search around the country. And it is searched within 150 miles of that zip code you put in your profile. And with unemployment being 70% or higher in the blind community, that's a very valuable tool.
It certainly is.
Yes. So let's get to our guest. Okay. Officer Stewart, Matthew Stewart.
Yes.
Okay. I want to welcome you to our show once again. And, just out of curiosity, let's get a little background about you. Were you born and raised in Indianapolis? Or?
Sure. And again, thank you very much, Lee, for the foresight to invite me on the show, represent the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, and just to talk about some of the common things that the Federation and the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department have in common. But I'm honored. I am a lifelong resident of Indianapolis, Indiana. I went to public schools. I started out at IPS, school number 43 at the corner of 40th and Capitol. And I spent 9 years there from kindergarten through 8th grade. And then I went to Broad Ripple High School and spent my 4 years there at Broad Ripple High School. And then from Broad Ripple, I went down to Indiana University in Bloomington and spent 4 years, a little over 4 years actually. I'd started in on a graduate degree, but majored in political science and graduated from IU, and then came back to Indianapolis. And really, a girlfriend of mine, a colleague at college who had graduated as valedictorian from her high school at Gary Roosevelt, we had become friends on campus, and her name was or is Deborah Bailey. And Deborah Bailey and I decided to, as a prank, as a joke, to apply for different jobs because we both knew that we were actually going to law school immediately following undergrad. But one of the jobs that I ended up applying for was the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. It was called the Indianapolis Police Department, or IPD at the time. And the police department responded back that they wanted some additional information, and they sent me an application and asked me to come in for an interview. And we just thought that was so funny because we knew we were not going to accept a job with the Indianapolis Police Department at the time. But as time went on, and I finished because this was in my junior year, when I finished the senior year, I was just kind of burnt out on the academic process and decided, well, I think I will, since I got an acceptance letter to the police department, I think I will go to the academy. I could take a deferment on going to law school for up to 1 year, and I would have a chance to make a little money to pay back some of these student loans that I had got as a student. And so once I went to the academy, I soon learned that, because one of my myths, one of the assumptions that I had is that police officers always got it wrong. And police officers didn't understand what the community wanted them to understand. So I thought I was going on a teaching mission, if you will, as I went through the police training academy. But I soon found out that there were lawyers who were police officers. The gentleman teaching our criminal law class was a lawyer and also a police officer. I found that there were registered nurses on the police department. So a lot of intelligent, a lot of very smart individuals on the police department. And in fact, they got it more than the community as a whole wanted to think they did. And so some 35 years later, here I am, still a member of the Indianapolis Police Department, and I didn't go to law school, but who knows what's yet in the cards before I enter the next chapter. Yeah.
And so then with your being on the force for 35 years, I guess I had a misconception myself, because I was thinking that, okay, this gentleman must have decided at a very young age, because you said that you went to school here in Indianapolis.
Yes.
And so I'm thinking that maybe you were a person who, as a child, said, okay, when I grow up, I'm going to be a police officer, you know. And so I had a misconception. You said that you went on a dare?
Yes, yes, pretty much so. But Florence, I mean, you raise an interesting point. Now, I guess there was a little bit in my childhood upbringing, because I did watch the FBI show, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, on Sunday evening. So I liked that. I liked cowboy and Indian shows, particularly Gunsmoke and Matt Dillon. So I always knew kind of underneath that law enforcement or political career. I really thought that I was going to end up running for political office, becoming an attorney, running for political office, because most of or quite a few of the individuals in Congress are also attorneys by trade. So that's what I thought was going to happen. But I certainly didn't think that I was just going to grow up and become a police officer right off the bat.
Wow, that is so interesting and intriguing because just sitting here, I'm kind of astounded myself because you don't look a day over 35 to me.
That's awful kind of you.
But we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. Enjoy the commercials, gather the information, and we'll see you shortly. No pun intended.
I am a blind vendor, and one of the things that I truly miss is reading Vending Times magazine.
Hoosiers can hear Indiana magazines, circulars, national magazines, and information from across the globe. Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
It is a fantastic service.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline today.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
Wow, I scored a touchdown when I found sports on NFB Newsline.
I enjoy reading TV guide listings on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind. We read NFB Newsline.
It's free.
The National Federation of the Blind knows that blindness is not the characteristic that defines you or your future. Every day we raise the expectations of blind people because low expectations create obstacles between blind people and our dreams. You can live the life you want. Blindness is not what holds you back.
Welcome back to the show with our host, Lee Martin, and our special guest today, Mr. Matthew, or let's correct that, Sergeant Matthew Stewart.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Now, during our break, we talked a little bit about your being on the force 35 years, and you've seen a lot of changes since you began the force.
So absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, when I came on the police department, it was called the Indianapolis Police Department, and now it's the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department as a result of the Marion County Sheriff's Department and the Indianapolis Police Department merging probably about 15 years or so ago, if I remember correctly, if I have my dates down. And so we've got about 1,500 members on the Indianapolis Police Department, sworn members. And of course we have support staff and civilians that are also make up the police department, whether it's dispatchers or telecommunicators or those individuals in the office that help run accident records. And of course without the civilians, the police department could not function. But the police department, obviously, we've gone to, we're more of a technological age and department. So when I first came, we wasn't too far removed from the call boxes that used to hang on the telephone poles. Not quite, but we had communications devices in the car a little bit. So then we went to held hand radios that we talked into. And then we finally went to where we have the radios attached to our belts on us. So it goes with us anywhere that we are able to go. We started out, we were carrying the big firearms, and now we're carrying 9mm lightweight firearms. So a lot has changed in terms of the police department, our computers. We now have laptops in the car. We can run just about anything from a person's driver's license status to pretty much their background or where they were born, what kind of vehicles they have, property that they own. So the ability to gather, to garner information on individuals is kind of right there at our fingertips. So a lot has changed. People have changed. It used to be that we were talking at church earlier. It used to be that when somebody was walking by a house of faith and they were maybe drinking a beer, they would put the beer down by their side and walk by, and they wouldn't drink out of respect for the house of faith, even though they were outside. And so now they not only drink as they walk by, they sometimes discard their bottles on church property. So it's a little bit different, a little less reverence and respect sometimes for adults and for law enforcement. But then I also see a lot of promise, a lot of hope in a lot of our young people. More young people are doing well than bad, obviously, and that there are a number of different organizations. The Federation is one that's helping to bridge gaps and disabilities to the broader community. So I see a lot of hope, a lot of change that is for the better.
Now, one of the questions that I have to you that has come to me, now, when protocol, when arresting or when you stop in a vehicle and you have a person that's blind, in the vehicle, do you have any type of sensitivity training within the department for officers?
So, yeah, Lee, and that's a very good question. Thank you for that question. So, all of our officers, when they come through the training academy, and that's another upgrade that I see that's very positive for the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police. And the training is so much more intense. The training is so much more geared toward the society that we live in today. And obviously we know that there are a number of individuals with disabilities out there in our community, and we are more sensitive to that. So as we go through our training to become police officers, we learn how to interact not only with persons that may be blind, but also sometimes we run across individuals who may be hearing impaired. We run across individuals that don't necessarily speak our language. And so when you run across individuals with disabilities, our training kicks in that we go through the training academy. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we actually have somebody that comes in from the Federation and actually at least shares a lesson span with new officers coming on the police department. So yes, there is training.
I do know that as a Federationist, being an activist, and we would like to kind of bridge a gap a little bit more by having been invited more to deal with sensitivity training for blind citizens. We are the blind citizens, and we know, blindness.
Yes.
We live it daily, and we know a lot of the problems that we have as blind citizens. Just like when we carry the cane, the white cane, with the red tip on it. Oftentimes, individuals may not know exactly what that is. And the sound of it extending itself, it kind of sounds like a Glock a little.
Yes.
And we don't want to put an officer or an individual in a situation to where it be mistaken as a weapon
Right.
And, you know, and we also like to ask another question about, you know, jobs. You know, what about, you spoke a number about jobs.
Yes.
Are there jobs that you may know of that blind folks can come in and apply for? Are the department open to those type of offerings?
Well, we certainly are. And so I don't know offhand, but I certainly will research that a little bit more and find out what may be available. But obviously, the City of Indianapolis, the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department is equal opportunity employer. And so there are a number of jobs, as you've indicated, that persons with blindness or hearing impaired can do. And so those obviously are open. And I just wanted to say that anyone that wanted to communicate with us, you can communicate through our email, which is crdc@indy.gov, crcd@indy.gov, and that stands for Community Resource Development Council, Community Resource Development Council. We may talk about that a little bit more. And then a telephone number is area code 317-441-4689, and that's how you can reach me directly. Area code 317-441-4689.
Okay, and
Okay.
Sergeant Stewart.
So we're just want to thank you very much for coming on to the show, and we have a lot more information that we want to find out about. You know, particularly if you know, blind citizens can have the right to bear arms. Can you have a license? Yeah. But we'll talk about that here at another point in time.
Okay.
But we want to thank you once again for your service to the community and being a great leader. I tell you, I'm really impressed with you and inspired by you, as our community should be. So we will be joining you again next week on the National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana Monthly Report. Join us then. Thank you very much.
The National Federation of the Blind Indiana Monthly Report. For more information, go to nfb-in.org or call 317-205-9226. That's 317-205-9226. The National Federation of the Blind encourages you to live the life you want.
As I travel the nation, I read NFB Newsline.
I live in Valparaiso, Indiana, and I listen to my local news on NFB Newsline.
As a student, I enjoy reading current events on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline today.